know it by rote. So what's going to happen is I'm going to tell the story. We'll retell the story together, and then we'll discuss the story. And so this will be done in 2 parts. So we'll start with one session. It's done in scenes like a movie. Okay, so we're gonna do scene 1 and 2. We'll stop, retell scene in 1 and 2. We'll do questions, and then we'll go to scene 3 for the last part and do the same thing. So as you look around the world, does everything seem like it should be? If you could imagine the world the way it should be, what would it look like? There was a day when the world was very much like you would have described, and a day when it will be again. Let's jump into the first story. This is a story about God, a being who was before all things and created this earth and everything on it. God alone always does what is good and right and perfect. The Bible calls him holy. While God was creating the foundations of the earth, angels watched with amazement, singing together and shouting for joy. God created these beautiful angels to worship him. Some of these angels rebelled against God and his ways. Any rebellion against God is called sin. God will not allow sin to remain in his presence forever. So he sent the rebellious angels into darkness on the earth to face final punishment later. Then God decided he would create another being called a human. God took the earth and prepared it as a place for humans to live. His spirit moved over the surface of the earth as he made light, separating it from the darkness. He divided the oceans and the sky. He gathered the waters so dry land would appear. He grew plants, flowers, and trees with seeds to reproduce themselves. He created the sun, the moon, and the stars, setting the days and seasons into motion. He filled the seas with fish, the sky with birds, and the earth with all kinds of wild animals. God put great care and creativity into all of creation, giving it unbelievable potential. Then he looked at everything and said, "This is good." After he had prepared the earth, God said, "Let us make humans in our own image, to be like us. They will be in charge of the earth and the plants and the animals that live on it." So God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed his own breath into him, giving him life. This man would be called Adam. Later, God created the first woman, Eve, and from one of Adam's ribs, to be a companion and helper for Adam. God created both the man and the woman in his own image. God blessed the man and the woman with the ability to continue creating through having children. The humans were given the job to develop the humans were given the job to develop the hidden potentials of God's world. He told them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over everything on the earth." He placed the humans in a beautiful garden, a place where they had everything they needed to live life to the fullest. In the center of the garden, God placed 2 special trees. One was the tree of life, and the other was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God said that Adam and Eve could eat from any tree in the garden except for one, the tree that would give them knowledge of good and evil. He warned them not to eat from this tree, or they would surely die. Daily, God would come and spend time with the humans, walking with them in the cool of the day. He showed them how to live in the best possible way, a life lived close to God, under his protection, doing the work he gave them, a life that is full and complete. Adam and Eve loved being with God. As God looked over all his creation, he thought, "This is very good." After creating all of this, God rested and set aside a day of rest each week for his creation. All right, let's retell the story. Tell me what you remember. Anybody?
God created the angels so that they would worship him.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? What else God created man from his own image. Okay. What else? Made Adam from dust. Okay.
He definitely created the heavens and the earth.
Okay. So if we were to start, where do we start?
Oh, God was outside of time and space and all these things. I mean, he already was, and then he created, and he breathed life.
Okay.
That's where it would start.
It would start with God, right? Start with God being before all things, and he created the earth and everything in it, right? What does it say about God? God is holy. What does that mean?
Set apart
Oh, in the story,
in the story.
yeah. Do you remember? Okay, well, that's part of it. But God always does, okay. Yeah, good and right and perfect. I think we got everything. God does what is good and right and perfect. That is what it means for him to be holy. And you said the God created the angels. You said it? Sorry. When he created the earth, what did he do? Okay, that's part of it. Okay, he made light, made it suitable for man.
Intentional design behind both the earth and what's going to be put into it, like giving man dominion over the animals and various other things.
Okay,
He created man in his image.
he created man in his image. All right, and then what was the purpose of? What was man's purpose after that? So he created man in his image, and then what were they supposed to do?
Be fruitful and multiply.
Okay. What else?
To glorify him.
Okay. What else?
Be protected by him, and because God showed them the best way to live, and that was
To be in fellowship with him.
Yeah, okay. To be in fellowship showed him the best way to live under his protection and close to him. And how was it at the end?
Good.
At the end?
No.
Yeah, it was good, but what kind of good? Because there's a separation here. Because the first, when he creates everything up until man, it's good, and then it's very good at the end. There's a different exclamation there. So we've kind of retold the story, right? So what was God's relationship to his creation?
close.
Let's see. John, would you hit the next thing on proclaim? Because I think we hit the button. All right. All right. Just click on proclaim for a second. Well, okay. No, it's up there, but it's not up there. So we'll just go. So let's go back to that question. What was God's relationship to his creation?
Close.
Close. That's okay. Anybody else? He loves his creation? Like a father figure? Okay. One of the things is all that he put into it, he took great care in making it. And how involved was he?
Very, from day one.
He was personally involved with it.
Yeah. And so it's not like God was outside.
Yeah. He walked with them in the cool of the day.
Yeah.
He spent time with them.
Yeah. So he was intimately involved.
Gave them a purpose.
Say that again?
As I gave them a purpose and a meaning.
Okay. Yeah. How did God make humans unique in his creation?
He created them in his image.
Okay.
He breathed his breath on them.
He breathed his breath into them. Anything else?
I was going to say on the previous slide, because
Yeah.
They were charged with specific responsibilities, having dominion and rule.
I'm going to go back to that for a second. Hold on. Hold that right there. That's very important, is that they walked with him during the cool of the day. They had intimate relationship with God, and that's really important to the story. Okay, so back, and I think it goes to this question too. So, what were you saying about how God made humans unique in his creation?
They were charged with having dominion over the plants,
Yeah.
the animals of the land, and the land itself. And they were given that responsibility of enjoying God's creation.
Yeah, they were given the responsibility of enjoying God's creation. We've said that they were created in God's image. God breathed his breath into them. I think those are all important things.
They were created a little higher than the angels,
Maybe.
right?
According to the story, it's a little lower than the angels.
But in Hebrews, doesn't it say that?
The question is, and we're going to stay in the story,
Okay.
what we're going to answer, but we can talk about that later, but that may be a reference to Jesus in that. So,
They were created separately from the rest of creation. And then someone online said free will.
yeah, they were given free will. Okay. So, what was the human's vocation or job in the creation?
What was the question?
What were humans' vocation or job in creation? What? To care for everything, care for all of creation. Yeah. Anything else? I mean, this could definitely be part of the job. You know, I think somebody said it a minute ago when we were talking about why they were unique.
Wasn't that what he was saying earlier, like having like dominion over it and the responsibility to take care of the animals and the land?
Yeah, that's what Jasmine was saying too.
Somebody over here.
To multiply, yeah, to continue creating is part of what God was talking about. What kind of relationship did God have with the humans? I know we've kind of covered that already. Personal. Yeah. Intimate. Yeah. Deep. Okay. Caring. Okay. I'm repeating answers so that people on live stream can hear it. So just so you know, if you're like, why is he repeating? That's why. So I just want y'all to know that. What did he do? You know, what did God do during the story? You know, that showed this relationship.
He loved them.
He loved them. Okay.
Walk with them.
He walked with them. He spent time with them. Yeah. So he gave them responsibility. Yeah. He directed them. He gave them responsibility. Yeah.
Like rules, the limit. He
Yeah.
didn't retreat except for this one.
Yeah.
He was watching out for them.
He was watching out for them. He told them not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because they would die. Yeah. He protected them from evil. That's what you're saying. What kind of relationship did Adam and Eve have with each other? They were husband and wife, but
Did it really even discuss that? It just said like she was making his rib.
it does discuss it a little bit. Yeah. But
She's the helper of Adam.
she's helper, companion. Yeah.
For it was not good for man to be alone.
Yeah. So
They were community to each other.
they were community to each other. You know, they were close. She came from Adam's rib. You know, that's pretty close. You know, and you know, there's another thing that we all know: they were naked and unashamed. You know, they weren't shameful in the garden with each other. What do you think is significant about the two trees in the center of the garden? You've got the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What's significant about those two?
They were placed there when they didn't even need to be.
Okay. They're placed there when they didn't need to be.
God gave them free will.
God gave them free will.
Given the choice to choose which to eat from.
Yeah. What do you think? If you think about the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, maybe, hopefully, yeah, they've got to choose between the two. So, what is the choice?
Life or knowledge?
Yeah.
Well, the choice is to be like God because God knows good and evil, and I think humans at that point only knew good.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe the choice was between morality and God's design, because
Okay.
life is a part of God's design.
Between morality and God's design. Okay. Anything on the live stream? No? Okay. Maybe it's a choice between depending on God and depending on self. So that's kind of... what did God want from the humans? Obedience. Yeah. Trust and obedience. You know. Yeah. What? Really? He just wanted, the reality is that he wanted them to trust him and obey him. That was what he wanted. Do you think humans were created to live forever? Yeah. Why do you say that? What in the story tells you that?
Because God banished them after they ate of the knowledge of good and evil.
Okay. Let's try to stay in this scene of the story. Before. That's if you stay in this part.
Because he said that if you eat it, then you would die.
Okay.
They weren't able to die before.
Okay. There we go. If you ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you will surely die. So they're created to live forever and to continually eat from the tree of life.
Us to choose him and to love him back.
Okay. Us to choose him and love him back was the answer to the previous question. Yeah. What did you learn about God in this scene?
The order of the creation of angels before humans. I didn't know the angels fell before the humans fell.
Okay.
He's a very creative person.
God is very creative. Yeah. Innovative. Okay. What else?
He does everything intentionally.
God does everything intentionally. Okay.
I would say that he's also just.
Okay. Just. All right. What else in this story? What did you learn about God? Because I think there's one that I think we're kind of, we've learned that God is holy, always does what is good, right, and perfect. Like Jasmine said, he's creative, but he also is loving and intimate with his creation. I think that's important as we go into the next story or scene. So we're going to move on into the next part of this. One day, a serpent, the most clever of all the animals in the garden, came to the woman. He asked Eve, "Did God really say you must not eat of any of the fruit in the garden?" Eve told him, "No, we can eat from any tree in the garden. It's only the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that we are not allowed to eat from or even touch." or we will surely die." The serpent said to her, "You won't die. God knows that your eyes will be open when you eat it. You will become like God, knowing everything, both good and evil." When Eve saw how good and delicious the fruit looked, and that it would make her wise, she took some of it and ate it. She also gave some to Adam, her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. They chose not to believe God and to believe the lie. Instantly their eyes were opened, and they became filled with shame and fear. They strung fig leaves around their hips to cover their nakedness. Toward evening, they heard God walking about in the garden. So they hid themselves among the trees. God called to them, "Where are you?" Adam answered, "I heard you coming, and I was afraid, because I was naked, so I hid." God answered, "Why are you ashamed of being naked? Did you eat the fruit I told you not to eat?" Adam blamed Eve, saying, "It was the woman you gave me. She gave me some." Then God said to Eve, "How could you do this?" Eve blamed the serpent, saying, "The serpent tricked me into eating the fruit." So God said to the snake, "Because you have done this, you will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. You will be the enemy of the woman and her children. You will bite his heel, but he will crush your head." God's heart was broken because of their disobedience, but he could not ignore what they had done. God always does what is good, right, and perfect. His perfect justice required that there be consequences for rebellion. God punished Adam and Eve by throwing them out of the garden, outside of his care and protection. No longer following God's way, they were now subject to sickness, pain, and death. Not only were the humans punished as a result of their disobedience, but all of the creation fell under a curse. Nothing remained as it was supposed to be, except God was still good, right, and perfect, and nothing could change that. God continued to love Adam and Eve. He even created clothing for them out of animal skin, so that they would not be ashamed outside the garden. So, that's the rebellion story. So tell me this story, retell the story. So help me, where will we start?
The serpent deceived Eve.
Okay.
Or not to Eve.
What did the serpent do?
He asked Eve if they could not, if God really said that they couldn't eat from any tree in the garden.
Okay.
Told them they wouldn't die.
They told them they wouldn't die. You know, yeah. So they were told they either had to believe the serpent or God. You know. What else happened?
After they ate of the fruit from the knowledge of good and evil, they recognized that they were naked and became ashamed and decided to clothe themselves.
Okay.
Is it worth noting that when Eve responded to the serpent, that she says that they couldn't eat just from the tree of knowledge, but not even touch the fruit? God never said they couldn't touch the fruit. He just said they couldn't eat from it. He manipulated the truth.
He manipulated the truth. Okay. So.
But Eve also got that information from Adam. It never says God specifically told Eve.
Yeah, it doesn't say, but yeah.
Well, because God told Adam that, and then God created Eve.
Yeah.
So it might have been Adam telling Eve, like, "Hey, God told us not to eat of that," and then, when you retell a story,
Yeah.
you kind of like add stuff like, "Don't even touch it."
Yeah.
Is it worth noting that this possibly was their first interaction with something sinful?
Well, it definitely was probably their first interaction with something sinful or a challenge, a temptation of some sort. So, all right. So, what else happened in the story?
They heard God walking in the garden, so they hid because they were ashamed of their nakedness.
Okay.
He wondered, why are you ashamed? You eat from the tree. And then Adam blamed Eve. And then, God was disappointed. And then he found out that they got the information from the serpent. So he tells the serpent that he's going to lie in his belly, eat dirt for the rest of his life. Be enemy to them.
Okay. So you just told the rest of the story. Very good. So, all right. So what did Adam and Eve choose to do in this story?
Disobey God.
Okay, eat from the tree, disobey God. What else? Doubted God's goodness. Okay.
Trusted the serpent.
Trusted the serpent. Didn't have trust in God. Okay.
They trusted in their own reasoning.
Okay. Yeah. They trust in their own reasoning. They didn't believe God. They didn't trust God. They're selfish. All right. What was the real temptation Adam and Eve were presented with by the serpent?
Being like God.
Being like God? What else? Anybody have a different answer?
Knowing good and evil.
Knowing good and evil? Okay. That they wouldn't die? Okay. Being tempted? Okay.
Opportunity of wisdom.
Say that again?
The opportunity of wisdom.
The opportunity of wisdom.
I mean, I'd kind of say it was like, once you're told you can't do something on your brain, it's like, I don't need to do that. That's all I think of.
Yeah, I don't think they've ever had that challenge before into this point. So, a couple of things. They chose self apart from God. And they tried to find meaning and significance apart from God. Those are a couple of the things that, you've done very good. What was God's initial response to Adam right after he had disobeyed? More distraught? What tells you that?
Because he first questioned whether or not they
Yeah.
eat it or not, so he didn't know immediately at that moment if they did until after he asked.
Do you think he didn't know that they ate it?
Well, I know, like,
I mean,
he,
he
like,
did-
knew, because he, like, lives outside of time and all, but
Yeah.
I think it was more of, he wanted them to admit what they had done,
Okay.
that they had gone against him.
I want to briefly mention how it kind of shows God's character and interaction with human by asking them questions. Because he knew what they had done, but he still wanted them to tell him that.
Yeah.
It's part of that relationship.
They wanted them to confess. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
When they did confess, Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent, so they didn't take responsibility for what they did.
Yeah. They didn't take responsibility. So do you really think that God didn't know where they were or what they had done? He knew. Yeah. Why did he go looking?
Because it was time. There's consequences to disobedience.
Okay. Why did he go looking? Why did God go looking for Adam and Eve? If he knew, why did he go looking? Think about what was going on in the first story. What did he do with Adam and Eve? Walked with them.
I thought he didn't know only because of how intimate and walking with them being more of in person. I didn't because
Yeah.
the almost human interaction. I thought the omnipotence wasn't there yet until after
Yeah.
they had betrayed.
I think God went to him because it was out of relationship. And not, he didn't just go, he wanted them to tell, but he went there because of the relationship. He had walked with them in the garden, he had been intimate with them. And so out of that intimate relationship, he confronts the sin. I mean, that's kind of what he does with us, right? He walks with us and then intimately confronts our sin out of the relationship. Let's see. what was the consequences of their action? Huh? They got kicked out of the garden? Separation from God?
Sickness, the ability, to die.
Yeah.
Everything that's like natural human now.
Yeah.
I feel like there was a strain between like God's creation of like animals in that life between like ours because of like the serpent. He showed like the relationship, how they could just be together, but now it's like almost like a relationship of hate, of like going against each other. Like he bites the heel, we stomp on the head.
Okay. The idea that there is that the relationship between humans and animals in the garden, a talking snake is kind of a interesting thing. They don't seem surprised by that.
Even just like life in general, because even Adam and Eve had like gone against each other, trying to blame on something else.
Yeah. So there's a relational death involved. So physical death, relational death, spiritual death. So, you look like you had something to say. Why do you think God required consequences for their sin and rebellion? God is just. Because he's righteous. Yeah.
Because then they would see that what they did wasn't really wrong. And so if you are faced with the consequence of your actions, that means you will learn from it. And you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. So that they learn from it, right? Okay. But, I think God is good, righteous, and just, does what is right always, and has to punish sin because it is rebellion.
I remember you saying one time that it was like a father punishing his kids. They don't want to, but you have to, so they'll learn.
Yeah, that's a good point. And what she said is it's like a father punishing their children. I got to repeat that for the online people since you don't have a mic. All right. It said all of creation experienced consequences for their sin. As you look around the world today, where do you see these effects? Huh? Everywhere. But specifics.
I would say war is a
War.
big one.
Okay.
Grand scale natural disasters like
Okay.
fires in California.
Okay. Having to wear the mask? Yeah. I'm with you on that. What else?
The division among the human race in general.
Yeah.
Us killing each other through abortion, for instance.
Okay. What else? Anything?
The position of power people have.
Okay. You said power?
Yeah.
Positions of power?
And that was
Yeah. I know. Having to ask people to repeat because of mask, it's kind of, yeah. All right. What do we learn about God in this story?
God is a very loving, he wants a very loving and intimate relation with us, but in the end, he's also just and righteous.
Okay. God wants a relationship with us, but in the end, he's also a just, righteous God. He is holy. Anything else?
And our choices to follow God or go against him.
Choice, God leaves that choice up to us to follow him or go after self.
But to go after self as consequences.
Yeah.
Despite our sin, he still loves us.
Okay.
And he does this through, he knows that they know that they're naked now.
Yeah.
So he provides clothes out of animal hide and gives that to them.
Okay.
He's kind and merciful.
He's kind and merciful. He knows he still loves us, but he knows that he has to provide for us for our shamefulness. Okay.
He is intentional.
No.
can't eat from the tree. So it's not only like love is the only emotion that he does feel for us. He can be disappointed.
Yeah. He can be heartbroken over our sin. Yeah, that's a good point. And angry. You know, we often focus on the love of God and don't talk about the other aspects of his justice and his, you know.
He's intentional and everything he does has a meaning to it.
Yeah, he's intentional and everything he does has a meaning to it. Got anything on the live stream? Yeah. All right. So that kind of wraps up our story for today, our stories for today. Any questions or comments you want to make within the story, these stories? What we're going to try to do is we're going to try to always go backwards and not try to think about the stories forward yet, because we're building upon each story to get to the next part. So
concerning when they decided to eat the fruit, was the decision to eat the fruit in itself sin? Or were they capable of sin after eating the fruit?
I think it's the act of unbelief that is the sin
Okay.
in there. Because they didn't believe God, they acted out of that. And so the actual sin is the unbelief, or the foundation of the sin is unbelief. The action is what is the result of that. So our unbelief causes us to sin, basically. Let me say it that way. So, yes.
I've asked this before, but I really have to get up. If the garden was like perfect and everything, how did the snake make its way in there to deceive them?
That's a good thing. If you go to the New Testament, where this story kind of comes from, is that Satan was given dominion over the earth.
But I thought it was after they had gone against them.
They rebelled before creation, according to my understanding of what Scripture says in the story. You know, is that before God, the earth was created, and then the angels rebelled, and then the rest of creation happened. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, so as much as I can tell.
It's
Yeah.
just like how you were saying that the garden and everything in life was like good, and then when Adam and Eve were made, it was like very good, but
Yeah.
then during that like very good phase, like there was still sin within the garden.
That's the sin came from the temptation. There was a tempter in the garden. So I don't know how to answer that exactly. Anybody else have an answer?
I was thinking,
Yeah.
I was going to say, it sounds like creation is good, and that's what God was mentioning. His creation is whole. There's a separate entity within that creation that was a tempter and a temptation.
Yeah.
So when I believe that he referred to as it being very good, I think he meant what he had created,
Yeah.
the scope of the earth and then the humans within that earth. Because
Yeah.
in the list of the creations and things he was mentioning, Satan wasn't in there.
Yeah, that's true. In the creation that was good, Satan wasn't there. The serpent wasn't in that part.
I think that sin was still, able to like exist, and like good and evil was there. It's just with eating the tree, it's not the creation of good and evil; it's the knowledge of it. So
Okay.
it can still exist in the world, meaning that it could possibly exist somewhere in the garden, meaning certainly will come off that garden.
Yeah. The knowledge of good and evil was there. It just wasn't.
Evil existed.
Yeah. That's why it was don't eat of this. I think that's a good point. It was there. So. Abigail, you look like you want to say something.
I'm just wondering how long they lived in the garden before this took place.
That's a good question.
Eons.
They
I-
don't have any children.
They don't have any children yet. You know,
Was it a week? Was it like 50 years?
30 minutes. It happened in 30 minutes. It didn't take very long, Yeah.
Where do we get the story of God God creating the angels and like all this and that information prior to the creation of the earth?
There, it's either Job 38 or Revelation 12. It's kind of where some of that comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why I said that we are in Genesis 1 through 3, but there's Job 38 and Revelation 12 involved in that too.
Can we make comparisons that we've learned here into like future texts or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Let's not move into the future text yet, because don't jump ahead. Let the story, like, we want to find our answers in the story as much as possible. And so I know we all have a knowledge of Scripture that goes beyond these 3 chapters and these 5 chapters or whatever. And so it's just learning it in a story form. You know, the hope is that you would be able to remember the short story and be able to communicate that with people at some point. So, and after we're done, I'll provide the stories for you to share. So, I've got them all, on PDF, and so. All right. Any other questions? All right. Anything on the live stream before I let them go? All right. I'm going to